She stood outside the ICU, her hands trembling, and my mother asked, "So are you coming to the party or not?" I stared at her, thinking maybe she hadn't seen the tubes in my son's nose. But no, she had. And still, her biggest worry was about a cake and decorations. If this broke your heart even a little, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe for more stories that hit deep. I'm Morgan. And just a week ago, I thought I had a family that loved me. I was a single mom, juggling 2 jobs, barely sleeping, but still showing up for everyone. Birthdays, weddings, Sunday dinners. I never missed a thing. But the moment I needed someone, the moment my world collapsed, they didn't even blink. My son, Eli, collapsed at school. One second he was playing in the hallway. The next, I got a call from the nurse saying he was unconscious. When I reached the hospital, they rushed him into ICU. Doctors said it was a severe viral infection, and things could go either way. I didn't even have time to breathe, to cry, to think. And just 2 hours later, my mother called. I thought maybe she was checking on Eli. Maybe she was worried. But the first thing she said? "So, what time are you coming to Sandra's birthday?" Sandra, my cousin's daughter, turning 10, I said, "Mom, Eli's in ICU. He's not breathing properly." She went quiet for a second, then said, "But you promised you'd bring the cake." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone. But I couldn't. Because Eli needed me. And my family? They needed their perfect party. That's when I realized something. I had spent years trying to keep this family together. Hosting, helping, giving. And they never once saw me. Only what I could do for them. But this time, they were going to see me fall apart. And they were going to regret every second of it. She sent me a voice note right after the call. It said, "Morgan, don't be dramatic. Kids get sick. He'll be fine. But you promised Sandra. Don't ruin her birthday." I played that message 5 times, standing outside the ICU, hearing machines beep behind the glass. That voice note didn't just shatter my heart. It erased every moment I had ever spent proving my loyalty to them. And in that moment, something inside me cracked. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, staring at my reflection in the hospital window. I looked like a ghost of the woman I used to be. The woman who used to show up, fix everything, smile through pain. But that version of me? She died right there. Eli's condition got worse that night. The doctors started talking about surgery, possible long-term damage. I had no money left. My savings had already gone into his school fees, groceries, gas. I'd even borrowed money from my mother last month, $2,000. And guess what she told me last week? "You better return that before the 20th. I need it for the party tent." Yes, a tent. For an outdoor party. While my son was fighting for his life, I had no choice. I sat outside the ICU and started texting everyone I could think of. Colleagues, friends, even people I hadn't spoken to in years, just asking if they could lend me anything. Some gave $20, some gave $100. But I was still short. Then something happened I'll never forget. A nurse walked over and whispered, "Are you Morgan?" I nodded. She said, "There's a man at the counter who just paid your bill." I rushed out, and there stood Michael, my former boss. I hadn't seen him in 2 years. He said, "I saw your message. I know we didn't part well, but I also know you never took a single sick day in 3 years. That meant something." I broke down. I didn't care who saw. That $7,500 bill? Gone. Just like that. Not from family. Not from my mother. From someone I barely spoke to anymore. And that's when it hit me. Maybe family isn't who you're born to. Maybe it's who shows up when everything's falling apart. But the story doesn't end there. My mother? She wasn't done humiliating me yet. What she did next, on the day of the party, turned everything upside down. The day of the party felt like a cruel joke. Eli was still in the ICU, but stable. I stayed by his side all night, holding his tiny hand, praying he'd wake up soon. I hadn't slept. My eyes burned, my back ached, but I was still breathing. Around 11 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a group text from my mother. Reminder, Sandra's birthday starts at 3 p.m. sharp. Everyone better be dressed and smiling. No excuses. And yes, Morgan, that includes you. I stared at the message. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd ask about Eli. But no, not even a "how is he?" Just a demand to perform like a puppet at her golden child's event. I replied with one word, "Not coming." 2 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my aunt. She didn't ask about Eli either. She just said, "If you skip this, your mother will never forgive you. You'll ruin Sandra's reputation. Don't be selfish, Morgan." Selfish? Selfish, I hung up. That was the moment I knew. I had to show up. Not for the party. For me. But I wasn't going to play their little role anymore. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I walked into that party, wearing black. Everyone else was in pink and gold. Laughter filled the backyard, but it all turned silent when I stepped in. The music stopped. My mother's jaw dropped, and then she said it, in front of everyone. "Oh dear God, Morgan. You actually came dressed for a funeral? Are you really that dramatic?" I looked her dead in the eyes. No. I came dressed for the death of the version of me who let this family walk all over her. Gasps, whispers. A few cousins awkwardly shuffled away. But I wasn't done, because then I said the one thing that would silence the entire party. While you all were decorating this backyard, my son was in surgery, and none of you even asked. That was when the guilt hit them like a truck. But what my mother did next, it changed everything. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She picked up the microphone and humiliated me in front of everyone. The microphone screeched as she snatched it off the stand. Everyone stared at her, waiting for her to speak, maybe even hoping she'd show some humanity. But no. My mother smiled, tilted her head, and said loudly into the mic, "Let's all take a moment to thank Morgan for making this day about her drama. As always." Laughter, some fake, some real. I felt like I'd just been punched in the chest. She continued, "We all have problems, Morgan. But this is Sandra's day, not a therapy session. Maybe if you spent less time playing the victim, your life wouldn't be such a mess." I stood there frozen. My legs trembled, but I didn't move. I looked at my cousins, aunts, uncles. Not one of them stepped in. Not one said, "Hey, that's too far." And then I heard the click of a phone camera. Someone was recording me. My humiliation was about to become a family group chat highlight, but they didn't know one thing. While Eli was in the ICU, I wasn't just sitting there crying. I was making decisions, big ones, the kind that change lives. I had just signed papers to buy out the family business, the one my parents built, the one they said I'd never be smart enough to run. Because last year, when they refused to loan me $10,000 to start my own clinic, I didn't beg. I worked. I stayed up all night learning, building, and hustling. I partnered with a silent investor. And guess what? The business they thought was failing? I made it profitable again. And just 3 days before this party, their majority shares had been quietly transferred to me. So when I grabbed the mic back, I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply smiled and said, "You're right, Mom. This is Sandra's party. But starting tomorrow, the company paying for it, that's mine." The crowd fell silent. But the best part? My father stood up slowly, confused, and said, "What the hell are you talking about?" I looked at him and said, "Check your email." And That's when the final blow hit. But what happened after he opened that email? The reaction no one expected. That's where the real twist begins. My father's hands trembled as he tapped his phone. I saw his face shift. First confused, then pale, and finally horrified. He looked up, eyes wide. This can't be real. Tell me this is a joke. It's not, I said quietly, but firmly. The sale was finalized 3 days ago. All legal. All real. My mother stumbled back a step, grabbing the edge of the dessert table like the cupcakes would save her. Sandra, still in her sparkling pink gown, looked between us like she was watching her perfect birthday crumble in real time. But how? You were broke. You were struggling? I cut her off. Yeah, I was. But I turned that struggle into a business. I turned pain into power. And while you were throwing parties and pretending nothing was wrong, I was saving what you were letting rot. I turned to the guests. This company you all praise, the one my parents built, they almost ran it into the ground. I brought it back. I saved it. And now I own it. Dead silence. Then whispers. Someone clapped. Awkwardly. Then someone else. And soon, half the room was applauding, some unsure, some proud, and some just desperate to be on the winning side. My father stepped toward me. Morgan, you don't understand what you've done. No, I said. You don't understand what you did. You chose appearances over people. You made your granddaughter's birthday more important than your grandson's life. Tears welled up in his eyes. I only ever wanted your approval, I added. But now I don't need it, because I gave myself the power you refused to give. Me. And just then, my phone buzzed. A message from the ICU nurse. Eli just opened his eyes. I smiled through the tears. My son's awake, I whispered, and I finally get to go home to him, with nothing left to prove. I walked out of that party, not as the family's failure, but as its future, and not one person dared stop me.